Hello and welcome to this video demonstrating and comparing bonsai soil compaction against regular garden soil. The soil recipes are going to vary significantly between bonsai species if you are trying to get the best results. This can be small changes such as more organic matter or more inorganic matter. This will alter drainage to some extent. On the other hand, it might be more significant changes such as pH. One thing that does not change no matter what recipe you use is that the soil will compact over time. This is a major reason why you do not use garden soil, or any soil sold for general use like that. A garden soil has at best a vaguely similar composition to bonsai soil. At worst, it is little more than rocks, dense clay, and maybe a little organic matter. As there is little to feed the bonsai in the worst case scenario, and only as much as the generic bonsai soil in the best case scenario, there is very little reason to use garden soil. Despite this, there are some who do try. With that in mind, we've decided to set up a little experiment, and it's looking at three mechanisms in a manner of speaking, although we can only really model one to be honest. The first is the use of organic matter by the bonsai. It will convert any organic matter in the soil into new growth. The second is the slow collapse of air pockets in the soil as water pushes down on the pockets and then vacates, leaving a small vacuum behind that causes those pockets of air to slowly collapse over time. The third and finally, the roots growing in the soil and slowly expanding. This will squish the soil, causing it to be forced into any and all open free space, such as the air pockets. The result of this is a gradual reduction in soil volume. In terms of this video, we will focus only on the effect of water and not the growth of bonsai, as this is not something that can be modelled in any way that could be of use to anyone else, or for that matter, any other tree than what was used in the experiment. There is just too much variation. This will therefore be a very narrow model in scope, but hopefully useful in showing you what and why of soil and the effect that the choice of soil has on soil compaction. And to do this, we have a relatively simple setup. In each of the two PVC pipes, we have one of two soil choices. One is a generic commercial bonsai mix. This was chosen as a representative of the middle ground or average of all bonsai soil mixes. The other is basically a mixture of yard soil. It is a combination of soil taken from several places to ensure there is no bias from a single random sample. Effectively, we have created two extremes of a scale. A normal bonsai soil would be the ideal average. It's neither too specialized nor is it too generic. It better suits all bonsai, but it is not really specific to any. The yard soil, on the other hand, is fundamentally whatever we could get, although as said, it is mixed together across a series of samples to ensure that we get at least a reasonably average sample. We now have had these two cylinders in amongst the bonsai for a year now. They received water, light, heat, cold, and all other environmental variables at the same rate as the bonsai around them. This is so they react and act as a perfect measure of the environmental effect. For that purpose, and to set up our experiment, we cut the PVC pipe in half lengthways. We then put a cap on the end so it holds it together. We also drilled holes in the bottom of the cap. As the pipe refused to cooperate, we also zip-tied it together, just like the police with an uncooperative suspect. The top will not be covered or closed, as we'll be watering this part. After the pipe was set up, we filled it with bonsai soil or garden soil. We then had to wait a year. Over that year, it was exposed to the same watering schedule as the bonsai around it, the same heat, light, cold, and so on. Thankfully, doing so required no extra work, time, or attention. It was honestly just sitting there most of the time. After a year, we took the pipe and put them to a side, where there was no rain or similar for a week. This is to ensure that it dries through as it normally would. This will also ensure that any voids are more visible and obvious to find, showing us a better representation of what's happened internally. The reason we also chose this is that the water can cause particularly organic matter to swell, and this would artificially inflate any readings that we had. We then took the measurement from the line we marked at the very start to the height we could measure at the end time. In terms of the bonsai soil, we had a difference of 6 centimeters or roughly 2.5 inches. The garden soil pipe is equal to a difference of about 13 centimeters or just over 5 inches. As you can see, the difference between garden soil and bonsai is a lot. It's nearly 2 and a bit times. The result of 1 year in isolation of this experiment led to the bonsai soil retaining much of its features, while the garden soil is of very little use by comparison. The garden soil being hard, dense, lost its ability to retain moisture, and is honestly not going to support much of anything. It will need to be very much reworked to be usable again. The bonsai soil could arguably be used as is right away, and as such you can see that there are benefits to using a dedicated mix, and not just in the presence of organic matter and the way it will support your bonsai, but the fact that over time it is a more functional soil mixture. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please do post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.